Okay, folks, so it looks like we're live. So welcome everyone. Oh, it looks like I need to click another go live button. 1 second. Oh, okay. We're getting some messages in the Facebook group. Welcome everyone. This is another episode of the Event 202, which we're calling Freedom Files now with Simone and myself. Hi Simone, how are you getting on?
I'm good, thanks, brother. How are you doing?
I'm awesome, thank you. And we're really excited to bring back Mark Devlin from the Event 202 guest panel. So Mark, how are you doing?
I'm good, thanks guys. Good to be with you. I'm doing my first broadcast from my new place out in the countryside here, so feels good. Feels good to connect.
And I can see some of the gear behind you. That's your sound kit and some books,
That's
CDs
right,
and things.
This is my DJ room. It's the most interesting room in the house. This is where all the magic happens. Got my DJ set up behind me. I've got some pieces of vinyl down here. I just grab a couple for you. 7-inch singles. Who remembers those?
Oh, crumbs. Yeah, that's
my reggae 7-inches. I've got all my books in the background. I've got my music books and my conspiracy books over in the corner there. So can have a lot of fun in this room.
Yeah, excellent.
Amazing.
Excellent. And if everyone in chat would care to share the show, that would be most appreciated. And it does look like we're having a little bit of issue streaming to the Facebook group. Hey ho, this is the way sometimes technology goes. What we'll do then is we'll just welcome everyone in chat. So let's have a quick read. Kelly, Effie, Pauline, Danita, John, Kieran, loads of people. Leighton.
Hi, people.
Hi, lovely to have you with us. Tonight we set up this live stream just to give people a catch up with Mark. What's going on with Mark? Some thoughts. What's happening? what have we kind of been optimistic about? What have we been challenged with? It's a polite way of putting it. Simone, what would you like to say to kick us off?
Well, it's been 2 months since Event 202, huh? 30th of April. And, I thought, I've been thinking to myself, what good has come out of all of this? If anything, what good has come out of it? And the thing that really strikes me is that the sheer number of new people that I've met and that I've interacted with in the last 2 to 3 months, it's been a real blessing to me to meet wonderful like-minded people, including yourself. And I remember phoning you up for the first time in March, towards the end of March, just to get you on board and get you onto Event 202. And I remember speaking to you. I don't know if you remember this, Mark. It was a Sunday afternoon. And you had absolutely had it. Yeah. And I don't know if you remember, but you were just saying,
"I am a bad day," didn't you?
well, we had arranged it. You could say that you had designed it that way. But we won't go into that. You were in a real dark place, and I remember saying to you, "Come on, I'm sure in a week's time you'll be looking at this very differently." But I understand. I did. But I remember how you were telling me you've dealt with this for years. I've only just come into this, but you've had to watch this unfold and continue throughout years. And I can't imagine that, because I'm suffering now just in a few months, So I can understand why you were where you were at. But I'm so glad that I think it was less than a week later you came out with this video, this wonderful rant that actually spoke to the hearts of so many people, because it was exactly how we were all feeling, and we're still feeling that way. I think to a most degree. I think many people have somehow worked out ways to avoid or to lessen the impact of these inconveniences in our lives right now. But I thought we would kick off, and I hope you don't mind, Mark, but I wanted to kick off with this rant video just to remind everybody of how much power we carry through our voice and through what we say, because this really was an encouragement to so many people. So take it away, Robin.
Will do. Do let me know if you can hear sound. I'll just take it right back to the beginning. Sometimes you can forget to check the box. I think I did.
This is a spontaneous video. I'd planned to make this, but I've got to do it right now.
That sounds good, doesn't it?
Well, this anger is in me because I'm fucking fired up right now. Find in another groundhog fucking quarantine day under house arrest yet again for who knows how much longer. People are just putting up with it. Another thing people are just putting up with is all these ridiculous restrictions that are in place in the stores. I've just had the unfortunate experience to go into the town centre for a couple of items that I needed, and it's a fucking madhouse down there. People are queuing outside all the shops.
Sorry, it's buffering. That's bitching.
Like meek, obedient slaves. Nobody's thinking to question it. Everyone's just obeying. You've got the gatekeepers that they're putting on the doors of all these stores, telling you how many people can go in, where you've got to stand.
Yeah, sorry, I think it's buffering a little bit, and it'd be good to change the volume as well. So let's well, it's buffered about 15 seconds beyond. Let's start again, see if we can do it justice. 1 second.
All the joy of live show. This is a spontaneous video. I hadn't planned to make this, but I've got to do it right now.
Still buffering.
Well, this anger is in me because I'm fucking fired up right now. We're confined in another groundhog fucking quarantine day under house arrest yet again for who knows how much longer. People are just putting up with it. Another thing people are just putting up with is all these ridiculous restrictions that are in place in the stores. I've just had the unfortunate experience to go into the town centre for a couple of items that I needed, and it's a fucking madhouse down there. People are queuing outside all the shops, standing in line like meek, obedient slaves. Nobody's thinking to question it.
Sorry, folks.
Everyone's just obeying. You've got the gatekeepers that they're putting on the door.
Maybe I just cut it and we'll
of all these stores telling you how many people.
Sorry, guys, I don't quite know why.
Just go into a new rant now if you want and do it live.
Yeah. Go for it. Well, I'll tell you what. Why don't we go to the recap of Event 202 and what you had to say at Event 202, and we'll come back to this rant.
Of course.
Towards the end, because I want to try and show people how far we've come in just 2 months. 2 months seems like such a short time, and it is. But so much has happened between then and now. But these were your comments, Mark, just to remind us of your input on that wonderful Event 202 live.
No problem. Right, this should work.
We can know that we have invisible controllers who hide in the shadows from the fact that virtually all countries around the world adopted the same lockdown measures at pretty much the same time, with just a few weeks different. There are a few rogue states like Belarus, Iceland, Sweden, and a few others that don't seem to be playing ball like all the other countries. But for the most part, the world as a whole went into lockdown around about the same time. This was all in March. It was all around the time of the spring equinox, which is very important when we get into the nature of these occultists again and some of the dates that they observe with their ritualistic behavior. But we have these groups, these think tanks that specialize in working out how they're going to control and dominate and manipulate the rest of us. And we can be pretty sure that the real controllers of this world get together in groups such as the Bilderberg Group, the Council on Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission, lots of these groups whose names we know. And there'll also be many whose names we don't get to hear about. But the point is, we can know from this that governments don't run the world. So Boris Johnson is not in charge of the United Kingdom. Donald Trump is not running the United States. There are other higher-ups that are dictating the way these things play out. There's also an organization known as the Tavistock Institute of Human Relations based in London. And this group specializes in mass mind control and social engineering. They shape and mold public attitudes and public reactions and behaviors, and we can be sure that Tavistock have played a big role in this current narrative, particularly in terms of things like social distancing and self-isolation, these buzzwords, these phrases that we're now all familiar with. And they've put this stuff in their writings for many, many decades as well. So it's not as if those of us who are paying attention don't have the opportunity to know how these groups operate and the sort of things that they plan to do to us. There's a movie that came out in 1927, almost 100 years ago, called Metropolis. It was directed by a German Freemason by the name of Fritz Lang, and it depicted a futuristic scenario very similar to the one we've got now. So when you watch that movie, the cityscape in which the characters are all living is very similar to the blueprint for the AI smart grid human settlement zones, futuristic smart cities that we have right now, controlled by 5G and artificial intelligence. And this tells you that as long ago as 1927, these groups had an idea of where they eventually wanted to take society. So they operate years and decades ahead of time. They display incredible levels of patience and incredible levels of persistence and tenacity and sticking to the plan. And we're seeing so much of that come to pass now. And again, going back to the idea of predictive programming, which is where we're given an opportunity to know what is coming, there was a movie that came out much more recently in 2011 called Contagion. I've not seen the whole movie, but I've seen some clips from it. And in the dialogue to this movie, they're talking about things like self-isolation and social distancing. They're using these terms. So back then, 9 years ago, it was known that these terms were coming, and we were being prepped for it in the form of these things being placed into works of popular culture. The way these groups and these networks and these individuals operate is by our tacit consent and approval. It's quite a complicated metaphysical concept, but they feel that if they let us know what's coming and give us an opportunity to know what's going to happen to us, when we don't voice any kind of objection, they take our unspoken reaction as our tacit consent to what's happening. So not saying no is as good as saying yes, as far as they're concerned. It doesn't matter if people don't believe this. It doesn't matter if people think this is nonsense. They do, and they operate by these tenets. And as I said earlier, understanding this gives us a good heads up on what might be coming next and how we get out of it just by voicing the fact that we do not consent. That's why I wear this T-shirt stating, I do not consent and I was never asked. I think that's a very affirmative statement to put out into creation. Sure.
There we go.
Brilliant.
So I want to just quickly highlight two comments in chat. So the first one was from Leighton, said, shout out to Vernon Coleman, my go-to guy when meeting normies who are starting to question. And then Skeptical says, old man in a chair is awesome. Mark in 30 years. I love that.
Other people have suggested that as well.
I love it.
Probably will be.
I tell you what. Go ahead.
That was an amazing contribution to Event 202, and I think you pieced it together really well. You know, it's about connecting the dots, right? These people have been at it for years, and they do it right in front of our faces with the pre-programming, with the Tavistock Institute behavioral analysis and all of this stuff. So,
well, there's another one that I've discovered since that broadcast, actually. I was talking about the movie Contagion back then, but there is a TV adaptation of Stephen King's The Dead Zone, which ran on US TV from 2003 to 2007. And there was a particular episode that aired in 2005, and I put some clips from it on my YouTube channel. And it's incredible when you look at the storyline to this particular episode. So the characters are faced with a deadly pandemic, sound familiar? Which sort of comes out of nowhere. And it's said to have originated in China, and it spreads very quickly all over the world by way of international air travel. And so the authorities in each country have to act very quickly to work out how to contain it. And they come up with ideas such as isolation, quarantine, everyone's got to stay indoors. They decide to shut everything down. They shut all the schools down, all the colleges, all the shops, all the amenities. And they say it's deadly and that there's no known cure. But then towards the end of the episode, one of the characters realizes that chloroquine is a chemical treatment that can be applied to this virus, and it can be deemed to be a cure. And you realize that the rollout of chloroquine is given as the solution to all of this. And this is basically what we've had with the Corona Bollocks 2020, all the way down to Donald Trump a few weeks ago talking about hydroxychloroquine, which is an anti-malarial drug being used coronavirus. So it's like the script was being written 15 years ago for this event right now. And this is the thing with predictive programming. You think you've gone back far enough when you see a movie from a couple of years ago, which contains elements of what's going on now. But then the more you keep digging, the further back in time you go, and you realize this stuff was right there in popular culture 10, 15, 20 years ago. It was certainly that case with 9/11. I found instances of predictive programming related to 9/11 containing visual clues as to what would come to pass on that day in 2001, all the way back to the late 1950s. Absolutely incredible. So Lord only knows how long they've been cooking this one up. But whatever else we can't be sure of, and whatever else confusion and cognitive dissonance there is out there with this whole narrative, we can be sure that it was known to be coming. Whether it was deliberately unleashed, whether the virus even exists at all in the way that we're told it does, whether people have really been dying from it or have been dying from something else, the authorities, the powers that be, the controllers knew a very long time ago that this was coming. And I would say that even includes the likes of the CEOs of all these major supermarkets, all these store chains, and all these corporations that have had TV ads out over the past few weeks saying, we're doing all we can to help you through these trying times. Here's our COVID-19 response system. So every corporation, every household name company out there has had an ad on TV for weeks now talking about their response to the coronavirus situation. But we need to remember that these ads were on the air within a couple of weeks of Boris Johnson's initial announcement of the country going into lockdown. So they turned those TV commercials around awful quickly, didn't they? Considering when you speak to any professional from the television industry, they'll tell you that the process of making a TV ad from initial conception to its broadcast takes several months. You can't turn these things around in 2 weeks. And again, all these stores with their social distancing measures and all these keep 2 meters apart signs and their perspex screens and their one-way arrows on the floor and all this, they got those in place very quickly as well, almost as if they were being stockpiled in a warehouse somewhere in the weeks leading up to the initial announcement, because the heads of these stores knew damn well that it was coming. So there was a lot of foreknowledge of this event, and it seems the general public, as always, were the last to know.
Crumbs, yeah. One of the biggest infographics I found really useful, so I'll try and dig it out now, is the Gates. The Gates is a sphere of influence, and it's Gates in the middle with all of these financial contributions. Have you seen that infographic? It's a showstopper for most threads.
Yeah, the only link missing there is Guantanamo Bay, but hopefully that'll be added soon.
Yeah.
No, but I think you're totally right. These things are coordinated. They have been pre-planned. Just look at the overall picture. When has every single government, 189 countries, all come together in lockstep to fight coronavirus? Why can't they fight famine like that? Why can't they fight other corruption like child trafficking, which, over 1 million children a year go missing? How come they can target all of that and they can surveil and identify each of us, but they can't do it for these nefarious individuals? That's right. It's so obvious. Good friend of mine is Mike Williams, who's otherwise known as the Sage of Quay. He's a great alternative researcher. And early on in all this, he said that it wouldn't surprise him if this whole thing was an exercise from the controllers, the individuals that pull the strings of all these governments around the world, to see how much they had all these individual governments in their pocket and how quickly they would step to it if they were given the instruction through the hierarchy with the order coming down from on high to apply these lockdown measures in their country. And I think he had a very good point, because, as you say, we saw all the governments around the world all employing the same tactics at pretty much the same time. They all went into lockdown. They all did this social distancing nonsense. The mask wearing came in, the keeping 2 meters apart. I know it's different distances according to whatever country you're in, but the concept and the principle is the same. And as you say, when have you ever known the governments of the world all come together on any event in the way they have with this one? This is unprecedented, to use that very overused word once again.
And I think it was was it? Oh, I'm trying to remember one of our panelist speakers, Celeste. That's right, Celeste. Celeste did a great walkthrough of the Lockstep document, and so did another presenter, who must have subscribed or something, got into the website for the Lockstep mind map.
Well, no, it's the World Economic Forum.
That's it.
Right. Yeah. So I'm totally with you on that, Mark. Whilst your friend might think that, I'd like to think it was that this was just a test to see how well governments and leaders could act and respond to their plans. But when you see the World Economic Forum and what's included on that website, this is going ahead at pace and is.
Oh well, he didn't mean that's all it was. He just meant that obviously there were other factors at play and there were other boxes that were ticked on the agenda. But part of it was seeing how quickly these countries would respond and how much they were under the influence and the control and the domination of the forces that are really making this thing happen.
I don't think any of us know the depth or breadth of this beast. I think it's far reaching. But you know what I said, let's keep this conversation light. Because it's so easy to fall down that trap of, oh look, it's just overwhelming and there's so much and we don't know what's coming next.
We've all had enough doom and gloom and dread, weeks and weeks and weeks of it. The human heart, mind and soul was not designed to take on this much doom and depression in one go. Life is supposed to be a cocktail of influences and emotions and experiences. There are going to be hardships in there. There is going to be some suffering, but that's not all that life is supposed to be about. That's not the way the Creator designed us. We're supposed to experience some joy, some hope, some optimism, some happiness, some fulfillment in the mix, along with these other emotions. And all anyone has had for the past 3 or 4 months, every time they turn on the goddamn TV, which is, some very good advice to throw the bloody thing out and stop reading so-called newspapers. But the minute you turn it on, all you hear is COVID, 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 fear, fear, fear. Oh my God, what's going to happen next? We're all doomed. And is it any wonder so many people are in fear and so many people are in anxiety and depression? We need to get some hope in there somewhere, and I'm seeing signs of it, and maybe we can talk about some of that in the show today. But I don't want this to be a doom fest either, because we've all had enough of that, and it's time to move on now.
I really believe that our Creator placed us here in this specific time, in your location, into your family, for this time, for this moment. So if anything, we should have that as our strength and as our backing, because God Almighty would not have put you in the position that you're in if He didn't feel that you were capable, or if you weren't equipped to do it.
It's the moment of our lives, all of us.
Totally. And every single person needs to take responsibility, because for far too long, we've sat back and we haven't taken responsibility. We've allowed this to happen. Like you said in your videos, tacit agreement is agreement. It's consent. And people need to wake up and take responsibility in their towns, in their locations, in their villages even. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, totally.
That's what I've been advocating for all along. Yes. And I've been so disappointed in humanity as a collective, as a result of this whole thing, because the predominant response to all of this news has been fear, compliance, and cowardice. Yeah. You see all these people in their masks, scurrying around, stepping into the traffic to get away from you when you approach them on the pavement, because they think you're going to kill them if you breathe on them. And it's hugely disappointing, because I would have hoped that humanity as a whole would have had more of a backbone, would have had more courage, would have displayed more common sense. The way people are behaving, these bizarre ritualistic behaviors, which I highlighted in my rant video, is just so strange.
But
the way
Mark,
people are acting.
People have been oppressed and have been conditioned into such a way. I mean, you look at the education system under the Heath administration, he took away our constitution, and knowing, that you have rights, that there's a common law, that there are these things that sit outside there. They don't teach you finance. They don't teach you how to manage your money and what it is, to operate in the world as a successful individual. They're designed to dumb us down. And then when you think about how they've brought in the TV, and then you think about the films, and you think about the music, and you think about the games that they play, like you say, this whole pre-programming all fits into that. It's to dull them down, dumb them down. And then you think about the hormones in the water, and the food that people eat, and the vaccinations that they've had. I mean, it's no wonder that we can't see. I mean, it's actually a miracle. I think it's a miracle if people's eyes open.
Yeah, I see it that way sometimes as well when I think of everything they have dumped on us. Just the fact that a proportion of the population is capable of still waking up to truth and piercing that veil of illusion and breaking through the mind control of the propaganda is a bloody miracle.
Yeah,
when you consider where the assaults are coming from, assaults through our food, through our drink, through the EMF pollution and radiation, through whatever's in the chemtrails, through the mind control on the TV, mind control through movies, TV shows, music.
School,
yes, it is a bloody miracle. And I've been on this path of uncovering truth now for 10 years.
Wow.
And when you've been in the game for that long, you can tend to forget what it's like to still be stuck in that old mindset, because this feels so normal to you now. Yeah. So I have to keep reminding myself of the mind state that I was in prior to 2010, because that's where most people in the world are still at.
Yeah.
And I have to try and gain some sympathy and some compassion towards people by reminding myself of that, because the alternative is I just get angry at them. And
I tell you what, sorry, I'll let you continue in 1 second. What I was going to say, Neil Kramer's "The Staircase of Disbelief" comes to mind, but maybe we can play that as a tune or a speech to see us out.
You've had it tough, Robin. You're the only one in your family that's awake.
It's a struggle. I've had well-meaning, sympathy, concern, fears, and I find that really frustrating. But I've just had to bite my lip, censor myself, not get too antsy, because I want to stay in good form with my family. I want to have a Zoom call on a regular basis where we smile, where we have a laugh, where we enjoy each other's company. I did actually try and get my dad on board with links and stuff like that, and he's kind of too academic for his own good sometimes. He just talks it all away.
You know what that is? That's his rational mindset. When you're so used to having this Greek theological mindset, which is that or that. It's not and or. And we are in. It's not just a physical warfare. This is spiritual.
Yeah, 100%.
And if you are too logical and rational in your mind, then you will never see the spiritual concepts that are going on around us.
It's left brain imbalance, isn't it? Yeah,
I've been duking it out all afternoon with two really clever guys. One is a software developer, runs a company, and one is a pastor of a church in Glastonbury, actually. And they're both very analytical, very scientific, very pro-science. And they love to try and strip away what I'm trying to say. They've been gaslighting me all afternoon, but I won't have it. I'm still there duking. I don't care. I'll still carry on.
You get invitations to debate. I get this all the time on my Facebook page and stuff. Like, debate me, dude. Debate me, son. You won't last 5 minutes. Debate me. When I put out a video, I don't want to debate anyone. I just want to put out a video, say what I've got to say, and you can make of it what you will. But people just love to argue. They love to have an opinion. They love to spout their rhetoric, and they love to debate. I don't do debates.
Tell us, Mark. Tell us something really positive that's happened in the last 2 months since we last caught up with you.
Well, if we just keep it confined to the UK, it's clear that this whole pandemic has woken up a whole bunch of people who previously would have believed everything the government have told them, and everything that comes out of the BBC Evening News and everything they read in the Daily Mail. And there have been so many inconsistencies. There have been so many anomalies. There's been so much just ridiculous nonsense that flies in the face. flies in
Suppression
the
and
face of common sense that so many people now are just starting to ask themselves what the hell is going on. The government doesn't seem to be in control of this. It changes its story every 5 minutes. I mean, I think they're playing psychological mind games with us on purpose. And a lot of this stuff is going to come out of the Tavistock Institute again, which specializes in psychological manipulation. Because we're getting things like, just a couple of days ago, we had Boris Johnson coming out with his speech to the House, talking about all the institutions that are going to be able to open up again from 4th of July. Restaurants and pubs and cinemas and all the rest of it. So that tends to give the nation some hope. And we think, oh, better things are around the corner. Thank God. We can go for a haircut. We can go and have a drink down the pub. We can socialize with our friends. Then the very next day in the mainstream headlines, you've got warnings of this second wave of the coronavirus that they're getting us ready for. They've been hinting at this second wave for several weeks now. Little sly mentions of it here and there to psychologically prepare you for it. So 1 minute it's like they're dangling a carrot in front of you, a little carrot of hope. Hey, how about that? Oh, no. Then they take the carrot away. No, you can't have that yet. No, because a second wave might be on the way. And none of it makes any sense. And all of this has caused a large number of people to wake up. And I know this because I've had personal correspondence with, it's got to be tens of thousands of people now, literally, in the past few weeks. I mean, I put out that rant video, and since then, my email inbox every day is absolutely laden with messages from people I've never spoken to before that have discovered it online and felt the need to reach out to me. And they say, you articulated exactly how we feel about this situation. And then they get into all kinds of correspondence with me. And it takes me most of each day now to go through that correspondence. And I do like to do people the courtesy of a reply, because I appreciate one myself when I message somebody. So I do attempt to reply to everyone. But so many of these people have told me this situation has woken up my mum. It's woken up my next door neighbor, my cousin, my brother, the guys down at the work, at the job, who previously were completely brainwashed by mainstream society, but now they realize that this whole COVID thing is a massive, monumental scam, and there's so much more to it than what we're being told. And if I added up the number of people that have contacted me to say somebody in their close circle of family or friends has woken up to this, it's got to be in the tens of thousands now. And that's just my personal experience. So you multiply that by everybody else in the country, and just imagine how exponentially, discovery of truth and the realization that we're being lied to has been. Yeah. So that's got to be a positive. And, the architects of this plan must have known that this would happen. And they must have considered it, collateral damage and just one of those things they're going to have to live with, because they got very audacious with this one. And if they do try and pull this second wave stunt in the autumn, give us a few weeks in the summer to have a few of our moderate freedoms back with social distancing mind. And then they try and snatch it all away from us again in September and say, oh, sorry, folks, back into lockdown. The virus is back. That's only going to increase that process. It's only going to wake many more people up to the fact that nothing makes sense about this whole thing. And who knows, we might even start to see some coordinated pushback and non-compliance then. I'm seeing little pockets of that happening now. I've been in contact with some bus and train drivers. They've emailed me to say that most people on their buses and trains aren't bothering to wear masks because they realize they do nothing. They realize they're actually detrimental to your health rather than protecting you from anything. Well, so that's encouraging. People are not bothering to follow these mask rules. And I think if they try this second wave stunt in the autumn, we're going to get more of that. We're going to get more of people just saying, I'm not doing it. We're tired of this. We've been doing it too long. We can see now it has no benefits, no merits. It doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense. We're tired of it. It's all bollocks and we're not complying.
I so hope that's true. I so hope that does happen, because people are commenting here, that the pubs won't survive with the rules that they're making them operate under. The shops won't survive. People will become, I'm not going. It's just such a hassle. It's I don't want to be tracked. I don't want to be traced. I don't want to wear masks. And you're right. There is this confusion, and I think it's designed that way, Mark. I think the confusion is, when you go back to is it the heliocentrical what do they call it? The
Hegelian dialectic.
That's it. I can never say it. It's a problem, reaction, solution, right? And the whole purpose of that is to put your brain into the survival mode, which is the fear-based element. Your very minimalistic survival mode, which completely takes away your ability to critically think for yourself. And so what they do is they give you information that's fearful, but then they give you information that's not correct, or then bring in other information that that really causes the confusion. What do I do? This? Do I do that? The WHO tells me that wearing a mask is useless, and now Boris is saying it's mandatory, yet we've been walking around for 3 or 4 months without mask. That it's designed because when you do that to somebody, they're more susceptible to receiving the next message. That's why they do this.
They love their dialectics, where they control both polarities of a situation or an argument. And that even plays out in my music industry research. Before all this, I was looking at the Beatles and the Rolling Stones in the 1960s. And there was a classic playoff that they concocted there, because I think Tavistock was affiliated with both of those groups and was controlling them. And there's much research that's come to light to back that up. So you had the Beatles, who, when they first came out in the early 60s, were portrayed as these 4 lovable lads, squeaky clean, family friendly. Your mum would like them, lovely guys, singing all these nice love songs. And then at the alternative end of the dialectic, you had the Rolling Stones, who were pitted as the Beatles' rivals, and they were the rough and ready ones. They were slightly dangerous. They were edgy. They were
mod rockers, weren't they?
Yeah, they were for the more edgy, dangerous music fans. But the truth is, both those groups were controlled by the same forces. And actually, the Beatles and the Rolling Stones were close friends. They used to hang out and socialize and party together. They were very far from rivals. And it's just a classic example of how they do it. It's with every political system in the world, conservative versus Labour, Republicans versus Democrats. Both parties are controlled by the same forces, but they give you the illusion of a choice. And we've seen much of that through this corona situation, in the conflicting information that we're constantly given. It would all be by design, I would suggest, just to sow confusion and cognitive dissonance. But we shouldn't underestimate the impact that many of us may have already had in terms of directing how the narrative has gone. So if there had been no pushback at all, no resistance, no sharing of alternative information like we've been doing, with Event 202, with all these other documentaries that people have made, with all the postings on Facebook, with all the podcasts people have done, all the interviews, all the whistleblowers that have come forward, all the medical experts and doctors that have told us a virus is not what they're telling us it is. If none of that had taken place, I think we'd be much further down the line of tyranny by this point than we are. Because I think the controllers of this narrative do realize that they have to tread somewhat cautiously. And they do realize that there's a point where if they push beyond it, they're going to make it so obvious to everyone that this is an agenda designed to achieve all kinds of ulterior motives, that the game would be up and the full light of exposure would be on them. And they don't want that to happen. So they tread carefully, step by step. They assess what they think they can get away with at every stage of the game. And I think those of us on the side of truthful alternative information have had an effect in terms of sending out a message that don't try and push it too far, because you're going to expose yourselves just too much.
Well, look at the Bill Gates as an example of that.
Bill Gates is destroyed.
Look what happened to him.
Yeah, Bill Gates is destroyed. His public reputation is in the sewer. And it's very encouraging to me to see so many normies clued up about Bill Gates, because I've seen conversations on Facebook threads, and it's not truth seekers as we would consider them, it's normal regular members of society, but there seems to be a very heavy awareness within regular society of the fact that vaccines are very dangerous. They're untested, the effects of them are unpredictable, and it's not a great idea to roll out a mandatory vaccine to everyone. There seems to be a lot of public awareness of this, and anything that comes with Bill Gates's name attached seems to be doomed to failure now, because of the awareness that many people have of Bill Gates's true nature. I think the likes of us that delve into these things and put our information out have been very successful in communicating the true nature of Bill Gates as a genocider, as a eugenicist, as a psychopath, as someone who wants to reduce the world's population, as someone who's not medically qualified. So he doesn't have any authority to try and vaccinate the entire world. And I think people have got wise to that. And Bill Gates is not going to be able to be used as the poster boy for the vaccine agenda.
Do you reckon he's going to be wheeled out and no longer fronting this whole agenda of vaccinate the whole world, shove needles into babies' arms?
It's not working. It's not working for him. He came out very early on. He did that interview with the BBC back in March, I think it was, in the early weeks of this lockdown.
He did.
And he was giving us these horror stories, doing his Kermit the Frog impersonation. You know, a lot of people have commented that he reminds them of Kermit. What's going to happen is we've got to have a vaccine, and then we're going to have to restrict circulation for 2 years, and then maybe after 2 years we can start to open things up again. And he's got his nice sweaters on, you know, his nice jumpers to convince everyone that he's just a regular guy and he's someone you can trust, you know. But he was there giving these absolute horror stories with his duper's delight smirk on his face, you know, that stupid little smirk that he has, because he knows he's lying. He knows he's a nasty little psychopathic genocider.
He's a clone. How about that?
What was that?
What about him being a clone? How about that?
Well, I don't know about a clone, but some people seem to think that Bill and Melinda are kind of reversed, and Melinda is the guy and Bill is the
all I'm saying is you can't deny those two pictures are very, very different people.
Right.
When you put his wife and
his wife.
Yeah, his wife.
Kind of like a Michelle Obama wife.
I think it's worse. I think she's been genetically modified.
I call them Baal and Belinda, not Bill and Melinda, because I think it's probably closer to the truth. But you know, Bill Gates was there early on, and he was saying, you know, it might take 2 years before we can open up society again. And you know, we've not really heard that one being pushed in recent weeks, because I think they've realised that they're just not going to be able to carry it off. You know, they were scaring the bejesus out of everyone by saying we're not going to be able to return to normal society until everyone's taken a vaccine. Well, I think there was a big pushback against that idea, and we don't hear Bill Gates kind of trotting that one out too much anymore. And when that BBC interview was posted up on YouTube, if you took one glance at the comments underneath the video, Bill Gates was getting absolutely destroyed. 99% of the comments were saying, we know what you are. We know you're a eugenicist. We know you're a vicious little psychopath. We're not taking your vaccine. You can shove it up your ass. And this was the vast majority of comments. Virtually no support for him whatsoever. And this is the case on most of his social media now as well. So that's an encouraging sign. So if we can achieve that by turning the tide against Bill Gates, then that same process can be applied to many other aspects of this.
So who would you target then, Mark? Who would be your targets?
Well, we got to get rid of George Soros, haven't we?
Yeah.
You know, they pulled their little George Floyd Black Lives Matter stunt out of their toolkit in the midst of all of this. And I think that was because it was being observed that the coronavirus narrative was not working as successfully as they hoped it would.
Yeah.
The mind control and the propaganda and the fear hadn't taken hold, exactly as much as they thought it would. And so they had to try another stunt, and it smacks of desperation that they felt to pull this one out the bag. But, you know, it bears all the signs of George Soros manipulation. It bears all the signs of being some kind of false flag. I don't know whether George Floyd really died or not. People are arguing about this. What we can be sure of is it wasn't just some organic event that just happened to occur on that date. It was planned for, just like the whole coronavirus thing. It was known to be coming. It was scripted, and it was there to cause unrest, cause division, because the coronavirus just wasn't cutting it as much as they thought it would. So George Soros has got to go, hasn't he?
Yeah, yes. I think he's got to be on the hit list. Who else would you say then?
That is so scary.
Yes, I just thought I'd bring it up because that is so cleverly done.
Tonight at that, I tell you.
Well, I
you-
must admit, I had fun on his LinkedIn. I took a snapshot for 10 minutes, recorded just me reading out some of the comments. And like you said, he got utterly destroyed. Now, LinkedIn is a professional platform. You don't just wade in there with, controversial comments unless you're willing to be, slightly out there. But I could see nobody holding back. They were wading in big time. They really were.
So everybody, you need to get onto Twitter or wherever George Soros lurks and start bombarding him with the same rubbish about this. Black Lives Matter. I mean, that's another fish altogether, right? With this terrorist attack that happened in Reading here in the UK on Sunday, 22nd. I mean, what are your thoughts around that, Mark? Because I haven't heard anything in the mainstream. I'm not seeing anything being posted by anyone about those incidents.
Well, I did see some newspaper reports about the Reading attack. I think it was on Saturday night it occurred in Reading Park. Yeah. So the story is this young 25-year-old jihadi terrorist, is there any other kind, ran amok and stabbed 3 people to death. I don't really know much more about it than that. Again, I can't say whether the event happened the way we're told it did, but it appeared to come out of nowhere. And it appears to be the UK's variation on the George Floyd event. And it was just a little reminder of the fact that these psychopathic controllers that we have are still capable of pulling a stunt or two out of the bag when they feel the need. And that may even have been the main aim of it, to just communicate the fact that they can still do this stuff. Because we've not had any ISIS terror attacks for a long time now, good couple of years by my reckoning. It's interesting that you only seem to get one disastrous catastrophe at a time in the mainstream narrative. You get a whole spate of ISIS events and nothing else, and then they all go away and something else comes along. So
I thought it was very strange that this guy, this 25-year-old Libyan man, he's from Libya. He's been in this country something like 7-8 years on asylum, couldn't go back to his own country for fear. And he's obviously he was locked up for petty crimes and nothing of the sort. MI5, you read in the papers, MI5 or MI6 apparently had tagged him as, a couple of years ago, saying he wanted to join a jihadist group or go off to Afghanistan and join one of these ISIS groups or something. So they apparently had been tagging him, but there's nothing else about him. It's just he's a 25 Libyan man that was here on asylum who'd just spent time in jail. He'd been in jail for assaulting a security officer in a shop. And I just think it's very bizarre that they just labeled it instantly a terrorist attack. This guy has no associations with terrorism. Apparently mentioned, 7-8 years ago that he, when in jail, that he wanted to, he had a desire to join one of these groups, but that is it.
It's the same old story. He was known to MI5. They're always known to the security services, said to be on their radar. Well, then what's the bloody point of having the security services? If they have all these people on their radar, but they never actually stop them from committing these attacks, there's not a lot of point in them being there, really. Why don't we just defund them and not bother having them in the first place? Because this is the story we got about all these paedophiles that were discovered in Parliament, all these sirs and all these lords. And you only ever discover that they were paedophiles after they've died, so that no action could be taken against them. But, they're all knighted by the Queen. They're all in close proximity of the royal family, particularly Jimmy Savile and Sir Edward Heath and people like this.
Yeah.
And again, MI5 is supposed to be there to vet all these people that come into contact with the royals, and yet they failed time and time again to discover that these people were paedophiles. If you go for the official story, of course, the truth is it was known damn well what they were, because most of those in MI5 are probably the same way. But maybe we should talk about the royals. Do you want to talk about what's happened to the royals?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Definitely.
I mean, where are they? Where is the Queen? Have people noticed that there's been some strange stuff going on lately with the Queen and the royals? So the Queen did these 2 televised broadcasts during lockdown, one very early on, which was when she was evoking the spirit of Vera Lynn. And there were all these World War II throwbacks where she was saying, we'll meet again, we'll be with friends and family again. And then she did a second televised speech, which is unheard of. They normally only wheel her out at Christmas. And so she did another one, sort of supposed to be geeing up the nation and giving us all hope and all this kind of rubbish. And then she just kind of disappeared off the scene. And we're hearing all these strange stories about she turned up at Windsor Castle and the gates were locked, apparently, which she wasn't expecting. Then people have taken photographs and video footage recently of Buckingham Palace, which appears to be deserted. All the windows are boarded up. And I know people will say, oh, it's being refurbished. They've been talking about a refurb that's taken place there. But there just seems to be no signs of life there at all. And the royal guards that normally stand outside the doors of Buckingham Palace appear to have been replaced by Gurkha soldiers. How strange is that? And then the royal crest and seal has been taken off the front gates of Buckingham Palace. The royal crest and seal has disappeared from various government documents and the government website and various official places where it appeared. The royal crest and seal, part of the image always did consist of a unicorn in chains. And recently, people have noticed that the unicorn has been unchained, as if to signify that it's now free of oppression. So that's an interesting thing. We're told that the Queen went into self-isolation at Windsor Castle when she eventually got in, and that's where she is now. And then a few weeks ago, the national press was forewarning the British public not to expect to see the Queen again in public, possibly ever.
Yeah.
They were saying, at 94 years of age, she's very frail and she's vulnerable to the coronavirus. So for her own safety, she's probably going to have to stay indoors and not be able to do any kind of public engagements now. Then, as a little piece of propaganda spin, a couple of weeks ago, they put out a picture of the Queen allegedly riding a horse around the grounds of Windsor Castle. It was on one of the hottest days of the year, similar to today, probably about 28 degrees. And she's there in a winter coat with a winter scarf, looking like it's Christmas or something, It smacks of being an old stock photo that they've put out there to convince everyone that she's still around. Then the other week, we had the news that it was Prince Philip's 99th birthday. Does anyone really believe that Prince Philip's still alive? And so they put out a photograph of the Queen and Prince Philip in front of Windsor Castle, allegedly, ostensibly. But it took experts in Photoshop about 20 seconds to pull the picture apart and to show from the pixelation and all of this that it was a Photoshop job.
I saw
and
that.
Philip's been pasted in alongside the Queen.
Yeah, I could see the hands were clearly a different layer, weren't they? There was something very strange with the hands.
Yeah. And it's very bizarre when you think back to Prince Philip's famous comment in 1988, where he said, in the event that I'm reincarnated, I would like to come back as a deadly virus to help contribute to the world's overpopulation problems.
Dear me.
And now here we are in 2020 with a deadly virus, and Philip's nowhere to be seen. So did he get his wish? Is the coronavirus, corona meaning crown, a little bit more connected to him than we might think? I personally think that Prince Philip croaked it weeks ago or months ago, and it's just being kept from the public. And I also think the royal family is gone.
Really?
Because the Queen is out of sight. There's no sign of her. It's very convenient for us to be told that she's isolating because of the coronavirus. But when you factor in all kinds of other things, William and Harry both did runners just before this virus situation broke. Meghan and Harry took off to America, and William and Kate were gone. Charles has not been seen for a very long time. And on Sky News the other week, they wheeled out a fake Prince Charles. Did you see that?
Yeah, we did. With piggy fingers.
Yep. And his bald patch has miraculously grown back.
Oh, I didn't spot that. That's a good spot.
Yeah, but quite clearly it wasn't Charles.
Yeah.
It was an actor playing the part of Charles. He wasn't particularly convincing. To me, he didn't look like him. He didn't sound like him. He was trying his best to affect his mannerisms, all of this, but it just didn't wash.
Yeah.
So they're wheeling out a fake Prince Charles. Now, why would they need to do that?
Yeah.
And then the other one that's been left is Prince Andrew, who appears to have been thrown under a bus, hung out to dry, and left to face the music over his Jeffrey Epstein connections all by himself, because that one isn't over yet. And the Americans still, want him for that.
See that? That's the smallest violin in the world. And I'm playing his sob story.
Exactly. So the royals have gone. And I know a lot of people are placing stock in the claims of this guy, Joseph Gregory Hallett. Have you heard about him?
I have heard,
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
I'm not sure what to make of it. Honestly, it could be just another distraction, another... I mean, it just seems all bizarre to come together all at once. Where is this guy before?
Well, to be fair, he has been making the claim to be the rightful King of England for many, many years. I met him in 2016 and he was talking about it then, and he had documentation then, and he had an alternative royal family tree that he was presenting back then. I mean, I can't verify his claims. I don't know if they're valid or not. Certainly, he has a website called kingof.uk, and he's got a whole load of information up there, which he claims gives everyone what they need to know to verify that he's the rightful King of England. I mean, personally, I feel the time for monarchs in this land or any other has long since passed. We have no use for any kind of monarch anymore. There's no legitimacy to monarchy at all. There never was. But it is interesting to reflect on whether this is what's happened to the Queen, because Greg Hallett states that in 2019, actually, he says that the Queen abdicated in October of 2019, and the news is just being delayed. But he claims that when he presented all the documentation to show that she was an illegitimate royal, and he claims that going back the past 150 years, the royal family have been illegitimate in terms of nobody is the product of the parents that you think they are. And the royal bloodline was usurped about 150 years ago by the Rothschilds, no less. Those nice people again. And he claims that he presented evidence to the Queen that she was not the rightful monarch, and she ceded her authority and her power over to him, and that's why they're not around anymore. So I don't know whether that's the case or not, but as far as I'm concerned, the royal family have gone, and I don't think we're going to be seeing them again.
Well, it is interesting, because when you think about how much our civil servants are tied to the crown, they are the agents on behalf of the crown, acting on behalf of the crown, on behalf of the people. And when you think that every single public servant in office needs to be taking an oath, which is an oath to the Queen and to uphold the law or whatever it is, it's generally to the crown on behalf of the people. And so I wonder how that would, if that was the case, if she was abdicating or retiring, whatever you want to call it, being shoved over by Hallett, then what does that actually mean for all our public offices, which the crown, I suppose, if Gregory Hallett is the crown, the rightful heir, then it would just become he would become the crown. So that wouldn't be an issue. But if there is no Greg Hallett, no second king, or
that my little spidey senses just say if he was that critical and important, surely someone could take him out by now. And I, God forbid, something should happen to any person, but it does strike me as slightly odd. He'd be a sitting target, wouldn't he?
Well, again, to be fair, he claims that there have been 12 attempts on his life.
Okay.
He told me this when I met him in 2016. I think it was about 9 attempts then. So there's been another 3 since. But he says he's been poisoned, he's been shot at. He's there have been all kinds of attempts on his life, he claims.
You're going to get him on your show soon, aren't you?
Well, I'm trying to. Yeah, I did reach out to him last week, and I asked if he would come on as a guest, and he said that there are some other interviewers that have got priority, and he's got to honor his commitments to them. But if I give him a shout in a couple of weeks, he may be able to come on. So we may still be able to make that one happen.
Well, that'd be interesting.
What's his expectation? What's his expectation of what might happen next?
Well, I've not heard him say what that is. Okay. I do find from the interviews I have heard him on, he tends to get very easily sidetracked, and he tends to dart around all over the place. So he won't complete a story. He'll go off on some anecdote and go off down some wild tangent, and it's very difficult to piece together what he's saying in any coherent kind of fashion. So if I do get to speak to him, I'm going to be pulling him back on track every 30 seconds and saying, complete this one, Greg, before we move on. But other things that are going on. I made a video at the weekend, and I made the point that when the mainstream news is full of only one subject, night after night after night, in this case, COVID this, COVID that, COVID the other, and not just night after night, but month after month now, it's usually an indicator that there are other things going on that they're trying to distract people on. They want you looking over here at COVID, 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 so you're not looking over here at whatever is going on over here. And so it's usually good advice when you see that dynamic playing out to look over here or over there or in any direction other than the mainstream. And there is a whole lot of stuff going on in the world right now, which if you only get your information from the mainstream news, you would have completely missed. And that's why most people would have no idea that all this stuff is going on. But a lot is happening in the rest of the world, and a lot is happening in America right now.
Tell us else what's going on in America. You got some good connections over there. I know that you have a radio show, and you have a discussion with, is it Colleen and
Charlie Freak? Yeah,
Charlie Freak and Colleen, his wife. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
They're really good friends of yours, and you interview them quite frequently.
Well, I do, and I did an interview with them, which I recorded on Sunday and I put out on Monday. It's had about 24,000 views in the first couple of days, so it's evidently attracting a lot of interest. And I tell you, Robin, you thought flat Earth divides opinion.
Yeah.
Get it? When you start talking about Donald Trump and the Q plan, flat Earth pales into companion. This pits brother against brother, mother against son.
Yeah,
everyone's got an opinion on this one, I tell you. And I've received a lot of derision, a lot of scorn, a lot of hate for even putting the information out, being the host of the show.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I gave a platform to Charlie to give his take, his observations, his insights into what Donald Trump is doing under the cover of the coronavirus and all the achievements that he's made over the past 3 years since he's been in office. And this was Charlie presenting the information. I acted as the host. I put questions to him and I gave him the opportunity to say his piece. But the amount of scorn and derision that's come my way just for allowing him to say his thing, people have been saying, Mark, how could you be so naive? This is an obvious psyop. We can't believe you were taken in by it. We followed your work up to now, but now we wonder about you.
Ooh.
And
do you know that's a shame, because before you go on, Mark, SGT reports Sean had Praying Medic on, and I thought it was a fantastic interview because Praying Medic is held up as quite a big Q channel, I did feel that on occasion, quite a few occasions during that interview, he dodged the question or couldn't substantiate what he was saying or couldn't really back up some of the claims. And if now let's say Q was true, it's a hell of a cryptic world to live in, isn't it? Transcribing all of these QAnon published posts, you're in the world of cryptic decoding, and you're in a quagmire. Unless you can come up with real evidence, you're in a quagmire. So that's my personal view about it. It's just like the Brer Tar Pits. You go in and you're not coming back out.
That's right. And with the whole Q thing, I started out convinced that it was a psyop as well, because I've heard reports over the years of mass arrests that are on the way and they never happen. And when this whole Q thing launched, I thought, it's just the latest incarnation of that whole situation. But Charlie has, bent my ear on many occasions, and he said, no, you need to give this one some consideration because this one's valid. And Charlie has evidently looked into this in a big way. He claims that he's in touch with a group that is working in affiliation with the Q group. And in the 3-hour show that I recorded with him on Sunday, he laid out his take on everything that Donald Trump's been doing. Now, I never really had much of an opinion on Donald Trump. I was very neutral about him. I didn't particularly like him. I didn't particularly dislike him. But the Q narrative follows that Donald Trump is very much a maverick, very much a free spirit, very much outside of the control of the deep state cabal. Interestingly, in that rant video that I made, which was back in March or April, I said, Boris Johnson doesn't run the UK, Donald Trump doesn't run America. Well, I'm now wondering if I need to reassess that, because Donald Trump appears to have a whole lot of power right now. And it appears to be power that hasn't necessarily been handed down to him by the cabal. So when you look very closely at some of the stuff that has been happening, Charlie broke down in that 3-hour show. I know it's a big ask of people to sit there for 3 hours and go through the material, but if you really do want to get a handle on what Donald Trump has achieved around the world since 2017, you might want to go through that information. But things that we can verify include a very major story, which is the Federal Reserve Bank being taken under the control of the US government, so effectively under the nominal leadership of Donald Trump, and merged with the US Treasury. This went on very quietly, very discreetly back in, I think it was April or May. While everyone else was obsessing about the coronavirus, the Federal Reserve, for the first time in its 100-year-plus history, was taken out of the hands of a private cartel of bankers and the control of the Rothschilds, ultimately, and brought under the nominal leadership of Donald Trump. This is an absolutely huge story on any level, and yet the mainstream completely ignored it under the smokescreen of coronavirus. Then you have the situation in China, which emerged about a month ago, I think it was, where the Chinese Communist Party basically was overthrown, and China redeclared itself a federation. And again, this is absolutely huge news, which was not reported by the mainstream, and hardly anyone has heard about it. And if you go on Wikipedia's page right now and look up China, there's no mention of this. And yet, you know, videos and documentation have emerged to show that this did take place. So these are major things. And then a whole load of Catholic priests have been placed under arrest for pedophilia, for child sex crimes. And we're told to watch out for many more high-profile arrests in the weeks and months to come. And many of them are going to be very well-known household names that are going to shock people. Hillary Clinton was in court the other week over the email scandal connected to the 2016 election. And she's due to reappear in court in September to testify again about the corruption and the political fraud that was allegedly undertaken there with her email server. Barack Obama is being accused of treason by Donald Trump, and he's going to be up in court soon to answer charges as to his attempts to try and rig the 2016 election. These are all massive stories that under normal circumstances would be all over the mainstream news, but they're not. And so it seems to me that the coronavirus is serving many different goals and ticking many different boxes. Not only is it taking away the rights and freedoms of the people, not only is it helping to reshape society, it's also helping to provide a smokescreen for all this other stuff that's going on that the control system, who have the mainstream media in their pocket, don't particularly want people looking at. And I'm told there's going to be much more to come, and many big revelations on the way. And people might roll their eyes at that and say there's no proof or no evidence of it. And no, at this stage there isn't. But what I'm saying is, don't be surprised if something like this comes on the radar very soon. So when it comes to Donald Trump, I have reassessed my view of him, and I see him very differently now to how I did a couple of months ago. And I think there is a faint possibility that he is not doing the bidding of the cabal in the way that all previous presidents since John F. Kennedy have done. And I think right now he's the control system's biggest nightmare. The last thing they possibly want to happen is for him to get back in November for a second term. This may well be what the George Floyd Black Lives Matter stunt was all about, to create all this unrest, all this division, and to paint Donald Trump as a poor leader who didn't handle that situation well. And I think there's so much more to this.
Interesting perspectives. I'd love to see the sources for the disrobing, if you like, of the Federal Reserve. That is huge, if that's true.
It's out there. You know, the documentation is available. I don't have a source right now, but I have seen proofs of that.
I personally am still very, very skeptical. When I first was introduced to Q, I was on it. I was thinking, wow, Trump, you have to push through because there is this evil activity going on all around the world, and you are one of the most powerful men. And then when you realize that actually that there's a lot more behind Trump, and it's not all on the surface isn't what it seems, I'm still going to err a side of caution. And that's simply because, this CARES Act that he signed off on, which is what taking over the Federal Reserve, actually it's printed like something like $22 trillion. And this is the money, they're just basically printing, gives them access to print money. And it's, where does all that go? They're giving it out as government grants, to the to keep people from sinking, to keep businesses from going under. They're injecting all this money into all the states because that's what they do. They use this crisis like these, and like here in the government, they've done the same thing. It's just an excuse to print a load of money to fill their own pockets and to push forward with the agendas that they've got. So I'm taking a very cautious view, because when you look at behind the CARES Act and what he did in initiating that release of printing money, it's actually also handing it over to BlackRock, who are one of the biggest global businesses, investment funds around the world. Now, they are now currently managing that deployment of funds through special purpose vehicles. And I thought that was very odd, that you've got this big global business that had submitted an annual report back in August 2019 about some financial global reset, who is now heading up the Federal Reserve's distribution of funds that they have created out of nothing. And if you ask me, it's actually just playing into this whole Zionist agenda. And Trump is, in the Christian world, which someone mentioned here in the comments, is actually, a lot of Christians talk about him being like a Cyrus in the book of Daniel. The Cyrus was the king of Persia who allowed the Israelites to go back to Jerusalem and build the temple. And that's what a lot of Christians believe, that God has placed him as a Cyrus, a modern day Cyrus, to rebuild the third temple, which is for the Antichrist.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. It feels like it's biblical times. A lot of people are talking about this is the end times and it's the time of the Antichrist, and is Trump the Antichrist? There's a lot of talk like that. And I'm cautious about it as well. I'm not entirely nailing my colors to this mast. I'm just saying that I can see that some things have started to happen, and the months ahead are going to be very interesting to observe. But I'm not, under any circumstances, advocating that we all just sit back and enjoy the show and do nothing. At no point have I ever said that. I made it clear in the video I did at the weekend, and I'll be making it clear in the next video that I do, that we all need to keep our efforts stepped up to resist the tyranny that's being imposed on us, to communicate information to as many others as we can, to expose the lies and the deception, and to push back and not comply in any way that we can. I mean, I'm busy working on a new flyer of resources right now, which is designed for normies, regular members of society. I did one of these in March, where I listed a whole bunch of URLs that people could go to get alternative information on the coronavirus. Most of those URLs have now expired in the intervening weeks. So I'm putting together a new flyer. I'm going to be paying for the printing myself, and then I'm going to be offering to post them out to anyone that wants to get out there as an activist and get these flyers out to as many people as possible ahead of a second wave stunt, if there is one. So if that's what they're planning, we're getting information out there ahead of the second wave so that when they try and pull it, people are forewarned as to what the game really is. So I'm not saying we should sit back and leave it all to Trump, leave it all to Q. I'm saying if all that stuff turns out to be valid, it will be a bonus on top of everything else that needs to happen. So we need to keep the pushback going. We need to keep the resistance going. We need to do everything that we talked about in the early part of the show and keep that stepped up.
Absolutely. So tell us some of the things that you've been doing to resist then. I know you had your No Consent t-shirt on at the event 202, and that is part of your resistance. and obviously you've got these flyers that you are distributing and kindly distributing to others as well. What else do you think we could be doing, Mark?
Well, a very simple way that I've got of not complying with things is this is my phone, and always has been. It's not an old ass, dumbass Nokia handset that's about 10 years old, and it still works great for me because I can make and receive texts and calls. And that's all I've ever wanted to do with a phone. Everything else I do on my laptop at home. So I never got a smartphone. And now you've got a lot of people running around very scared and very paranoid about these track and trace apps that have appeared on their smartphones overnight when they've not even installed them themselves. And you've now got to uninstall the things. Otherwise, they're following you around. So it's a very simple thing. It seems very trivial. But this is a way of scuppering plans by just not rocking a smartphone. So there's going to be no tracing for me. And this can be Bluetooth enabled, so I still turn the Bluetooth off when I go out just to be sure. But it's just simple things like that, because so much of this pandemic is centered around the idea that everyone's walking around with a smartphone and can be tracked and traced that way. And you don't have to have one of these things, I know we think to using them, but it is possible to exist without them.
Synchronicity here. I think that's the same model, isn't it? A Nokia 216.
3210, I think. Yeah, it's very similar.
So once you've got your posters, we'll happily distribute them through Event 202 as well, Mark. So just so you know, we're working on some exciting things. So I don't know if you want to just keep this in your back pocket, and also for the viewers that are listening live now. We have got we've been mapping out those people that have signed up to Event 202 and gave their town or their city. We've now mapped them on a map, and we're contacting each individual person, because you can see on the map how many people are in an area that are like-minded and who are truthers and who want to be active in their local area. So part of our mission is to try and get that going, get a network going, get people in local areas together to go out and leaflet, to go out and help someone if they've got an issue with the police bringing force, particularly if talking about taking them from your homes, people that you can talk to and have a support network with, as well as the platform to do action from.
Yeah, and if you're not yet signed up to Simone's mailing list for that, then I'm going to drop the sign-up form in chat right now. So it's a tiny URL. I'll drop that in chat now. So if people want to...
So if you get an Event 202 app appear overnight on your smartphone, don't be alarmed.
Yeah.
It's for a good cause.
And
other than that, it's just getting the information out there as widely as possible, isn't it? Particularly ahead of any second wave stunt that they might try and pull. And if they try and put us all back into lockdown in the autumn, I think it's going to encounter much more resistance than the first wave did in the spring. Because when people are queuing outside the shops when it's cold and it's pissing down with rain, that's going to bring home the hardship and the suffering that we're all enduring so much more than when it's a beautiful sunny day and you're standing outside the shop. So it's just got to be a case of relentlessly putting that information out there, getting through to people that there are alternative ways of looking at this whole situation than what you're told on the mainstream news. The mainstream media is so toxic and so poisonous and so evil. And satanic, and I would actually use those words to describe it, because without it, the mind control, the fear-based propaganda could not work. People would not be behaving in these bizarre ways if they hadn't been scared to death by the mainstream media. And they still haven't twigged that that box in the corner of your living room is not there to enrich and empower your life in any way. It's there to dictate your thoughts and your behaviors and take over your mind and your soul.
Yeah,
and it's just got to go.
Just to pick up on Kieran's comment there, yeah, the SIM phones that go in the old phones are the big ones, but your old phone micro SIM can slot into a holder that fits the same size, and if you go to any phone shop, they'll just insert the small SIM into the big SIM holder, and it still works in a phone this size. So
and you can
that's
get those handsets on eBay. They're readily available there.
that's right. Yeah. So, what other successes would you say you've seen in the last couple of months since your event 202 and your recent car rant, Mark? Have you seen anything that given you pleasure?
Yeah, my mum's become an activist, which I never thought would happen.
Yes.
Happy
My,
days.
my dad has always kind of been on board, and my dad was a big inspiration to me in my waking up process, because he was always into alternative information and he read some really far out books. He was reading Eric von Daniken back in the 1960s. And then he got into the work of David Icke, and he kind of encouraged me to take on alternative viewpoints. So I owe a lot to my dad. But my mum was always someone who rolled her eyes at everything that he would say, and she really didn't want to have to embrace the information and face the cold hard truth that the world is nothing like we're told it is. She always used to make the comment that I just want to live out however many years I've got left as happily as possible and just try and enjoy my life. I don't want to wallow in all this darkness. But then the coronavirus situation came along, and she could no longer go out for pub meals like she used to enjoy doing, and she could no longer browse through charity shops like she used to enjoy doing, and she got very pissed off. She was kind of like me in my car rant, and I spoke to her about some of what was really going on and what the ulterior motives were and stuff, and she took a great interest in it, and she started speaking to people about it, next door neighbors, friends, people that she would meet in town, people that she would meet in supermarkets, and she would say to them, you do realize that we're not being told the truth about this by the government. You do realize this is all about control and taking away our rights and freedoms. And when I had the first batch of flyers printed up, she was out there on the street handing them out and putting them through letterboxes up the street. And I never thought this would happen. So if my mum can become an activist, then anyone can. And again, through all the correspondence that I've received from so many people, the most unlikely candidates have woken up to this one. And once you've woken up, there's no going back, as you well know. People have said, I've been speaking to my brother for 20 years, trying to get him to read books, trying to get him to watch videos, and he hasn't wanted to know. But when this one came along, everyone's lives have been turned upside down to such a degree, and everyone's behaving in such strange ways. And a lot of people now have so much time on their hands because they don't have a bloody job anymore.
Yeah.
So they've got the time to watch YouTube videos now, and it is causing people to face up to these cold hard truths. So we've won over potentially millions of people onto the side of truth through this. And the more they drag it out, the more exponentially that's going to continue.
Amen.
Awesome.
Well, I've just got some really wonderful comments in the section here saying, God bless your mum, Mark's mum. And also, I need one of her.
Yeah.
I need a Mark's mum. Come and chat to mine. Lots of love in the comment section for you today, Mark. Lots of love to your mum as well.
Well, I appreciate that.
That's an amazing story. You know, if that is it's a blessing in disguise, because these people could have gone on for another 5-10 years not knowing the reality, the real truth.
Are you aware of Mark Passio? Are you familiar with him?
Who?
Yeah. Mark Passio.
So Mark Passio on his show a couple of weeks ago was talking about the fact that for the past 20 years, he's been trying to get through to his mum. And he's gone over to her house. He's tried to get her to look at truthful, alternative information about who's really running the world and what's really going on here. And she's always rejected it. And he said at the start of this coronavirus thing, he was in a conversation with her and she said, I can see it now. Wow. She said, I can't imagine what it must have been like for you living the last 20 years, knowing what I've only known for a couple of weeks and having to live with that and trying to tell people about it, and they just throw it back in your face and don't want to know. I can't imagine what it must be like to have that as your daily experience for 20 years.
Yeah. You know, this has been one of the hardest things that I've struggled with, is that it's not that I don't have friends and I don't have family. Of course I do, but none of them understand the level and the depth of all of this that's going on. But what that does, it actually makes it more difficult for you to relate to them. as on the same level that you did before.
Yeah.
Because you can't, it's like you go, I was talking to somebody else the other day and they said, you know, why would I even go to the pub anymore? Because I'm just standing there. Everyone's talking about the football and, you know, this, that, and what they're having for tea and what they did all at work. But what's the real talk?
Yeah.
You know, the talk that actually matters, that this world is falling around us and that we are in this mass deception and people need to wake up. You know,
yeah, that's the hard part, because since COVID broke, we've not really been dependent on them with any urgency. We obviously did the best we could, try to wake as many as we could, but now we're kind of joined at the hip with them. We have to wake them
you're
up.
in the same house.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. And, you know, I've not been able to have normie conversations for years now. I've heard Max Egan talk about this. He said that, you know, he can't get together with regular members of society because they want to talk about the football or the latest TV show or whatever. And, you know, not only do you have nothing to contribute to a conversation of that nature because you don't know or care what's been going on with the football, but you wouldn't want to anyway because there's more important things going on. And I made a comment in one of my videos that once all this stuff is over and we emerge the other side of it, whatever that's going to look like, I have no interest in associating with regular people anymore. You know, it was one of my rants, and I said, I don't care how long I've known you. I don't want to speak to you after this because you've not taken personal responsibility for truth, and your ignorance is causing everybody else's rights and freedoms to be taken away. And you have no right to remain in that ignorant state when it's causing that harm to other people. And I still feel like that. I still feel that I'm not going to get into any kind of social situation with people that are not able to hold a conversation about truth and freedom and justice and things that really matter. And, you know, if some of these things which I feel are just around the corner do come to fruition, and if some of the revelations that I've been told to expect about some very famous people, some very well-known names, and some of the stuff that they've been getting up to behind the scenes all these years, if and when that information becomes public knowledge, there are going to be a lot of traumatized people out there that just are not going to know how to handle it. They are going to lose their minds, and they're going to come knocking on the door of the likes of us, the people that they've mocked and derided all these years as conspiracy theorists and tinfoil hat wearing nut jobs. Isn't it interesting that the people that have accused us of wearing tinfoil hats all these years are now walking around with face masks on? But, you know, when the shit hits the fan, who are they going to come calling on to say, what do we do? What do we do? It's going to be us. They're going to want us then, because they're going to want us to help them navigate the madness of this world that they're now living in. I mean, that process has started already. But there are people coming to me. There are people coming to me now saying, what's going on? What should we do? And before this, they were having a good old chuckle and a good old laugh at Crazy Mark and his wacky conspiracies, you know. How the tide has turned on that one.
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait for that.
It is funny because I have the same with church folk. You know, people who are in the church and are supposed to be so, you know, understanding the signs and the times and, you know, and they haven't got a clue. These people are running churches, they're leading people, but all they're doing is it's all about performance. It's not about the real world events. It's not about the actual spiritual warfare that we're living in. And I have to, I'm sorry, I'm going to get into an argument with you. You know?
I was the same. I was the same. There was a great pastor in America called Billy Crone, and he did an amazing series of waking people up in his community, and his YouTube channel just went through the roof because finally there was a pastor who was aware of what was going on. And I tried to share it with mine, and in the end I just walked away. I just thought, you know, I'll have to take solace that the people I'm sharing truth with may not share the same faith as me, but at least we're talking truth. We're talking pulling back the veil from what is Satan's kingdom, and his kingdom is everywhere to be seen. His influence is everywhere. All of the Illuminati worship him, for goodness sake. If you can't delve into some of this material, then it feels very superficial, doesn't it? And really frustrating.
Yeah, well, the problem with most, if not all, organized religions is that they place stock in the validity of government.
Yes.
So they tend to be of the view that the government knows what's best for us and we have to obey their dictates and we can't have anarchy. And that seems to go hand in hand with the doctrine of their religions. So that's going to be a problem from the get-go.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it seems like the bigger the awakening, the bigger the separation, and it is biblical, isn't it? If you look at there is a separation going on. If you just talk consciousness, there's definitely those that are just learning that it's about vibration, frequency, and opening up your mind to things and trying to sense what's right and wrong. And it's crazy that everyone's been left behind. Those that are steeped in science, those are steeped in organized religion, those are steeped in corporate life. These are the people that thought they had a handle on things. That was me 10 years ago. Like 2009, 10, like you, Mark. I woke up. I read. I woke up to Bill Still's The Money Masters in 2009. That was my first film, and then it was Freedom to Fascism, and then it was Loose Change. So 2010, I went through that grieving process.
Zeitgeist was around then as well.
Yeah, and Zeitgeist was held on, was it Amazon Web Services? That was where it first came out. You didn't get it on YouTube. It was on a website.
It's crazy. Danny Rampling told me about Zeitgeist. Mad, the DJ, the very well-known DJ. I was in an airport lounge with him in Latvia in 2008, and he said there's this incredible movie you should watch called Zeitgeist, and that was the start of it. Who'd have thought?
Yeah.
Well,
but yeah, it does feel like biblical times, and there are a lot of spiritual scholars and people that look into metaphysical matters, and they are of the view that on a frequency vibrational level, there's big change going on right now, not just in the 3D physical reality, but in terms of we're in the age of Aquarius, and there's been eclipses happening, there's been rare celestial phenomena happening, and it all points to major change happening in what's playing out in this realm. And the coronavirus is a smokescreen. We're all fixated on it, but there's so much more going on, and I think that's only going to continue.
I'd recommend people watch Norb's World if you know him, because he's a musician, but also put together it's just a concept and an idea and a model. He's very good at graphic design, and he talks through the different realms. And I think it's fascinating. He's just published his entire works on a long live stream. It was about 2.5, 3 hours. Fascinating, blows your mind, makes you really, really think. So yeah, I'm all about just keeping the open mind and learning what other people are learning right now, because I suspect those who've been in the truth community for a long time are still learning loads of new stuff. You've got to kind of take the good stuff out whilst all this rubbish is going on.
And you've got to be prepared to reassess your standpoint on things when new information comes along. I've done that many, many times, with Flat Earth, for instance, all the evidence that was coming across my agenda, it conflicted with what I believed at the time, but I couldn't deny it. I looked at it, it checked out, and so I had to reevaluate my viewpoint on it. I've done that with Paul McCartney. I've done it with so many things, and I think it's the sign of an authentic truth seeker when you are able to reassess your stance on something, rather than sticking rigidly in concrete to the same idea decade after decade and not budging, no matter what comes your way.
I remember two things. Dr. John Dee said, who's a PhD, he said, I had to either do what science tells me, which is go where the evidence and the data leads me, or deny my whole education. He's a PhD in spectroscopy. He did laser experiments from Brighton to Worthing, and I find that fascinating. I was really good to learn from that. And I was going to say Crow 777 as well, isn't it? Belief is the enemy of knowing. You've got to be willing to put it aside. Really, really tough work when it happens. But yeah, if you're willing to do it. So in chat right now, we've got FPV Angel, another great channel to go and have a look at the alternate models. Well, we don't do models in FPV, he will say, but what the team have done there is phenomenal work, looking at various different decodes. So there's scriptural decodes. There's volcanoes and geology decodes. There's Nazca line decodes. They use Walter Russell's work, which is free energy.
That's really interesting.
You should definitely sit and watch FPV Angel's channel. Start with the small videos and work your way up. I've had my mind blown there because it's made me, I've had to reconfigure what I know again. And some of it I'm still on pending because I can't get my head around it. But other parts of it are challenging enough that I think, yeah, that kind of fits. But hey, that's what the research is all about.
So is this code, because you mentioned coding, everything is coded. That's something that I'm coming to realize. You know, everything has codes. Your birth certificate is a code. Your national insurance is a code. They are your trust that has been set up by the government for you. Everything is coded. Language is coded. And it's just so interesting, isn't it? DNA is a code. You know, it's a language. It's just really interesting how this world is made up of codes.
Yeah. COVID-19 is a code.
Don't.
Covert ID 19 AI.
Well,
it's probably what it means.
I saw a joke the other day. It said, I'll tell you a joke about COVID-19, but you ain't going to catch it.
Yeah.
Brilliant. I love it.
That's right.
Coronavirus.
Coronavirus is an anagram of virus or a con.
Yeah.
It's all there in the language, you see.
Yeah, I try and put some funnies together with my Feel Good Friday show, and I'm trying. It is quite hard, but we've done it every week.
COVID comedy, yeah.
Yeah, you've got to have the relief in these times. I tell you what, if I didn't have you guys, I would be probably in a straitjacket in a mental asylum right now.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, well, I'd have locked myself in the garage with a hose pipe connected to the exhaust through my open window weeks ago. That first time you called me, Simone, I was going out to the garage to do it then, but I'm still here. And you know, COVID comedy can get us through because, you know, the virus. Did you know the virus is a film fan? It's a film buff. Because Boris has announced that from the 4th of July, cinemas can reopen. Because the virus, it won't get you when you're sat with other people in the cinema because it's a film fan. It's like, shh, yeah, I've come to watch the film. But it's very lazy and it doesn't like keeping fit. So Boris has said that gyms can't open because if you go in the gym, it will get you. But it's okay to sit in the cinema. It will leave you alone. So it's very, very sensible like that.
Yeah.
Let me just tell you a couple of funnies here. Apparently 1620 was no better than 2020. WTF. There's that one. I think I've got one more. 1 second. Here we go. I'm still hugging. Are you? I quite like that one. Epstein didn't kill himself. I quite like that one. Hello, rioters. I'm the random pile of bricks fairy. And then there's that one. Time of death, 11 p.m. Course COVID.
Yeah, that'll work.
Yeah. Well, I wonder if we can play Mark's lockdown rant just as a final reminder as we wrap up.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course.
Is it going to be okay, or will it bust?
Let me try again. I don't think it had anything to do with my internet connection, but I'll give it another whirl. Here we go.
Do you know what, Mark? I'm just going to say this. When you speak, you carry an authority. And I don't know if anyone has told you this before, but you do. God has given you an authoritative voice, and that voice needs to be heard. And it is heard, and I'm very glad that it is because it blesses a lot of people. So I don't know if you know that, but it's true.
Absolutely true.
I get a lot of comments in that vein, so I'm very appreciative of it. It seems I've found my true path in life. It took me long enough to get here, but I'm doing the work that I came here to do now, without a doubt.
Amazing. And This is what everybody needs to get with, you know. They need to understand what is their purpose, what is their mission in this, what is their responsibility, and then walk it out. And it will feel the most natural as well when you're doing it.
Yeah, it does feel natural, and it will be different for everyone. There will be other people that have some very different skills to me. A lot of people have said, I could never do a video, I could never do a podcast, but there are other things they can do.
Yes.
Maybe they're good at graphics or technical stuff or filmmaking, and that can be
Yes.
their contribution. You know, everyone's got something to offer.
Exactly. Find your niche and then just run with it. There's no time left, you know. You have to make the most of what you've got right now.
Fantastic.
So Simone, how much of a newbie are you to all this? I know you're kind of recently converted, but
Mark, this story is amazing, but Simone's testimony is phenomenal, and she did it very graciously on a live stream on my chat once, and the chat room loved it. So go do a whistle stop one, perhaps, Simone.
I had no idea about any of what's going on until January. A friend up north she had been telling me about Satanists and, you know, that they're killing children, and I thought, oh well, that's biblical. I know it still happens because look at abortions, you know. But then I really started to look at it. She was kind of she encouraged me to look at it a bit deeper, and I did. So I started going down the whole comet ping pong. She said, just type that into Google. So I typed in this comet ping pong and whatever his name is, I can't remember
James Alefantis.
That's it.
You were right in the belly of the beast there.
So she threw me in and I went, whoa. And so from January up until February, I started learning about Q, what was really going on in the world, that who was running the world. And then it was the music and the arts industry, and then it was everything else, and then it was straw man and the legal fiction and the corruption of our history books, and the flat earth was just another thing that got thrown into the mix. I mean, within the space of 2 months, I literally knew everything that there is to know. And I literally,
that is a fast track.
I've said it's the Lamborghini of red pills, and it's the Lamborghini of the red pill journey.
The amazing thing is I know that was supposed to be that way because I am a fast learner. I've had so many words spoken over me over my life that I'm on fast track, express train. I pick things up. I'm like a sponge, and that's great. But I'm also a person of action. I don't sit back, you know. And so God knew. He knew that I would come into this consciousness at this point. He knew that I'd be doing what I'm doing now. And that's what gives me the confidence and the hope to continue. You know, like you say, keep talking about it. It doesn't matter. Like, my life doesn't matter if I'm not proclaiming truth. My life doesn't matter. My house doesn't matter. My job doesn't matter, because all of it is a false reality that's been presented to you.
That's right.
So I've had to come down the learning of all of this very, very quickly. And believe me, I hit the floor with a thud, and I may have broken some things inside. It completely shattered my faith for a while, you know, because you realize that, okay, I didn't, I never accepted organized religion. I never accepted one church or one style, but I could now see it for what it is, how beastly this whole thing is. And anyway. So it's good.
It used to be, for me, the most important thing in my life for so many years was DJing, playing gigs. You know, all I could think about is where's the next club booking, when's the next radio show. And I was unpacking this room the other day. I've been unpacking vinyl and old tapes of my radio shows and old music magazines and old club flyers. And I was looking at all that stuff thinking, none of this matters anymore.
No,
it just doesn't matter. It used to be my reason for living. And now none of it matters. I wouldn't care if I never played another club gig in my life.
Yeah.
Because the only thing that matters to me now is truth.
Yeah.
And it's just all mementos.
But you know what? That's what I think is within all of us. That's what where the place we all need to get to, is that our clothes don't matter. You know, what we buy in our house doesn't matter. All that matters is humanity coming together as one and defeating the common enemy that we have. That's all that matters.
Well said. Well said. And I just need to add to Simone's testimony. This was kind of was it back into November, December last year to March. Then she met Dave Murphy, and then end of April she was putting on event 202 as the organizer. Goodness me, who could get to that position in 3 to 4 months?
It took us 10 bloody years to get there.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
Well, you
So-
can wind me back. You can wind me back. I follow the lead. You know, you guys are the champions of this. You've been pioneering this stuff for years, and I just salute you all. You know, I admire your tenacity. I admire your perseverance. I mean, gosh, in the face of such adversity with your family, your friendships, you know, and then you've got to deal with that, like that. This isn't real. This around us, this is all engineered. This is all a construction to keep us competitive and apart and not connected to our divine creator.
Yes, thank you. Kieran says, you're doing a great job, Simone. Truth is what it's all
thank you,
about.
friend.
Integrity, honesty, and compassion come with looking for truth. I think that's true.
Yeah. So shall we play this? I just
Yeah.
love this. Every time I watch it, Mark, it gives me that, I'm going to call it it's like an internal, in a rising up of indignation inside of me. You know, it
Yeah.
gives me that motivation to just go, yes, I'm fired up.
Well, it was
Okay.
completely spontaneous. It wasn't planned in any way. I got back. I was all fired up. I thought, you know what? I want to make a video about this. And it was just straight from the heart to the screen.
That's what makes it so brilliant. All our viewers watching right now, if you haven't seen this, this is a must. So
Hope it doesn't buffer, guys. Lovely comments in chat. Thank you very much for that. Let me just remove the comment. And Mark's rant was epic, says Sandra. Here we go. Let's see if this works. No, I think 1 second. When you share, you have to tick a box. So 1 second, share the audio. There we go. Right. There we go. No. Always the way. It's on mute. That might help. Here we go. Let's start again.
This is a spontaneous video. I hadn't planned to make this, but I've got to do it right now while this anger is in me because I'm fucking fired up right now. We're confined in another groundhog fucking quarantine day under house arrest yet again for who knows how much longer. People are just putting up with it. Another thing people are just putting up with is all these ridiculous restrictions that are in place in the stores. I've just had the unfortunate experience of having to go into the town centre for a couple of items that I needed, and it's a fucking madhouse down there. People are queuing outside all the shops, standing in line like meek, obedient slaves. Nobody's thinking to question it. Everyone's just obeying. You've got the gatekeepers that they're putting on the doors of all these stores telling you how many people can go in, where you've got to stand, how much distance you've got to leave from the next person. Half the people in the queue are wearing these stupid fucking face masks anyway. That's going to protect them from anything. And just look at what our lives have become. The only thing you can do now is go out to the shop for essential supplies. You've had your freedom of movement taken away from you. You can't go to the pub if you choose because they're not open. You can't go for a coffee in a cafe if you choose. You can't go into the countryside for a walk by the river. You can't go and sit on the beach. You can't go into the park. You can't go on holiday. You can't do any of these things. And people are just putting up with this. And the only thing that's left is going to the shops, which has become the highlight of many people's days, and look at the situation that we have to go through there. Standing in line like you're in a fucking concentration camp. Now, it would be one thing if all this was being done really for our own good, and if we had governments that truly care about us and want to keep us safe. But we know this isn't the case. It's never been the case. Your government doesn't care about you. They're there to control you. They, in turn, are controlled by higher powers that want to enslave, surveil, monitor, control, and dominate the entire human population. When are people going to wake up to this fact? There is enough evidence around now to prove that this is the case if people would only apply their free will to go and do this research for themselves. So the situation you have now, trying to get to these shops, standing behind these stupid bits of tape, people getting nervous when you get too close to them, going into the other aisle to walk past you, and nobody's objecting to it. Everyone's just putting up with it. Look what our lives have become. All of this 1 month ago would have been unthinkable if you told people we would be living this way. If you told people they have to stand 2 meters away from you in the store. If you told people that only 4 people can be in a shop at any one given time. Nobody would have accepted it. Nobody would have believed it. Look how quickly this has become our regular daily experience. I'm not happy about this, and I seem to be in a minority because most people that I meet are just putting up with it, just going along with it. For as long as you cooperate with madness such as this, Don't expect it to change. Don't expect it to get lifted. We're being conditioned and entrained to accept this as the new normal, and I'm not happy about it, and I'm not putting up with it. I'm not happy with living this way. I've got too much self-respect, too much dignity, and too much intelligence to put up with this shit. Damn right I'm fired up right now. Damn right I'm mad about it, and other people should be mad about it as well. Why is it only a small minority that's showing any concern about our freedoms being taken away from us, and this madness, this insanity that we're being required to live in? I'm not putting up with this. I don't want my kids to have to grow up in a world like this. And the only way it's going to be prevented is if enough people get mad about it, stand up and say they're not having it anymore. All of this that's being done, the social distancing bollocks, all these fucking restrictions placed on us, all the lack of freedom that we now have to go about our business, natural God-given rights to freedom of movement, so long as we're causing no harm. It's all being taken away from us, and it's all being based on lies. There is no COVID-19 coronavirus that's going to kill you if you get 1.9 meters away from the next person in the store. A shitty, stupid mask over your face is not going to protect you, because this virus is not what we're told it is. You cannot catch it from person to person. Listen to what medical professionals are telling you about this. Look it up. Get some alternative information. They've got a proven track record of lying time and time again. Why would they be telling you the truth about this one? They're not. The COVID-19 situation is a provable lie. It's an excuse to bring in all kinds of draconian, totalitarian measures to fulfill the Agenda 2030 New World Order master plan. Most of the people watching this will be aware of it, but if you're not, you owe it to yourself and your families, your children, your grandchildren, to research this and get hip to what this is really all about. You're having your freedoms taken away from you, and most people seem to be just fine with it. They're standing in line, they're complying, they're not asking questions, they're not kicking up a fuss. Think about what is going on here. Where is sanity? Where is reason? Where is common sense? Where's dignity? Where's self-respect? Where's freedom? We have a right to live freely, and I don't take fucking kindly to having my freedoms taken away from me by the idiocy and the complacency and the complicity and the acquiescence of other people. I can't live like this. I'm not prepared to go on like this. This is not any kind of society that I belong to. And I know there's a lot of people that feel like me. Where's this going to end, people? Just look at our daily experience. Something as simple as going to the store for something you need for your household while your family's being kept under martial law house arrest. What a fucking ordeal it is just to do that. And that's the only thing that's left. And that is going to be the new normal that is going to continue because it's been shown to have worked and people have been shown to have just put up with it without kicking up a fuss. I'm not prepared to put up with this. I can't live with this. This is no way to live. This is not life. This is not freedom. It's straight fucking insanity, and I'm not having it. Who else is not having it? Who else has had enough? Who else is going to say no? Who else is going to resist? Who else is going to stop complying with this madness? All the morons out there, the COVIDiots, that don't mind being enslaved, well, that's up to them. But it's not for me. Who's with me on this?
Awesome. Amen.
That's brilliant. I loved it.
Yeah. Well, I think back to what those weeks were like, and it was so new to all of us, these bizarre experiences. And I've made the comment on many interviews, I've been through just about every emotional state that it's possible for a human to go through these past few weeks. I've felt the anxiety, I've felt the panic, I've felt the anger, the rage, the absolute depression. I felt hope, I felt optimism. I've been almost high on hope and positivity at times, and many of those emotions are felt in the course of one day.
Yeah,
it's
me
just
too.
Such a new experience for all of us. I can go from deep depression to feeling like I've done 20 grams of coke at opposite ends of the day, depending on what I've been looking at.
I'll tell you what, this has been a roller coaster for everybody. Every day we've been bombarded with something, whether it's from school social distancing to food shortages to power cuts. Do you remember when they were saying all of that? To releasing prisoners, to you couldn't make it up. You really couldn't. Every single day, there is a different story. Terrorism now, Black Lives Matter, protesting, banks collapsing, this, that, and we are. you know, it's an assault. It's an assault on everyone's psyche. So I think give us all a pat on the back for even just standing still, you know.
100%.
Okay.
So why don't we start to wind up this stream and just thank everyone for being with us all the way through. We've appreciated loads of your great comments, and I think we answered pretty much every question that came in. Thanks for covering the full spectrum, Mark. You covered out, I think, what everyone wanted.
Yeah, thanks, man. And there were some great comments and questions there. So thanks to everyone for the support on the show and for getting involved.
Tell us, Mark, where can people find you? Can they find your resources? You've got a website, right? You've got a couple of books that you've written about the music industry. Do you want to share that with the people?
Sure. A lot of people are discovering my work for the first time now as a result of all this madness,
Wow.
and particularly as a result of that rant video. I'm getting emails now saying, oh, you've written books? Oh, you researched the music industry? People knew nothing about this aspect of me. You know, prior to 2020, I was just a specialist in the music and entertainment industry and all the dark stuff that goes on there. But I've not done any work or research into those subjects since March, because I've been on this full time, 24/7. I've just been absorbing myself in what's going on and our shared predicament that we're all going through.
Mm-hmm.
So people might be surprised to learn that I did a whole load of work before this into exposing the music industry. And just going back to a comment I made earlier, I have word that there are going to be some major revelations forthcoming about some very famous people, some very well-known names that are going to be absolutely shocking to people when they come out. And I feel that I've laid some foundations ready for that through the work that I've done through my 2 Musical Truth books, because in that work, I've been letting people know that these celebrities, these household names that you're entrained and conditioned to look up to and revere and worship, are never who you think they are. And if you've heard of them, if they're famous, it's because their career has been gifted to them, because they're there to fulfill some agenda or other. It's not because they were the best singer or the best guitarist or the best rapper. That's not why they got there. They got there either through their family bloodlines or because they were the ones that showed themselves most willing to sell their souls for fame and fortune. So that's what my Musical Truth work has been about. I've got my 2 books, volumes 1 and 2, which go into all of that. I've just written a novel as well, my first allegorical novel. It's called The Cause and the Cure. It's set in Oxford in 1990. It's full of all kinds of period detail from the time, but it's heavily loaded with symbolism and metaphor and allegory. So those are the 3 main books that I have out. You can get those on Amazon, but if anyone wants to get them from me direct, they're very welcome to send me an email to markdevlinuk@gmail.com, and I can arrange to send out copies. My YouTube channel is youtube.com/markdevlintv. I've got all my interviews up there, all my podcasts, and I do a weekly video now where I give my thoughts and reflections on the latest happenings in this crazy, insane world of ours. So people might like to take a look at that.
Fantastic. One final thing is the Sound of Freedom podcast, Mark. I've listened back to loads of your episodes, Mark, and found some inspiring tunes in there, some good conscious music.
Well, yeah. Thank you. I mean, this goes back to my roots as a DJ. I mean, sometimes I forget I was ever a DJ because I'm so far out of that now. But yeah, I do a conscious music podcast called The Sound of Freedom, which consists of music where the artists are articulating everything that's on the minds of the likes of us. They talk about conspiracy issues. They talk about spiritual issues. They talk about truth and freedom and anarchy. It's mainly conscious hip hop, but there's some other styles in there, some reggae, some soulful stuff, some old tunes from decades past. And there's nothing else like it out there. I'm up to 98 shows now. So that's on Spreaker. The full archive is on Spreaker. I can't upload that one to YouTube because they take it down within 5 seconds over copyright BS. Yeah. But if you want to get it, it's on Spreaker.com. Look for Mark Devlin, The Sound of Freedom there. And there's 98 shows in the archive now.
Fantastic. And I think it'd be awesome to play us out with one of your recommends, if I can just tee it up properly, which is Kale Sampson. the Facts of War Part 2. How would that work?
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cale Sampson is a Canadian guy, and he's just this regular dude that developed skills as a rapper. And about 6 or 7 years ago, he put out an album, and he just left it at that. And I've been in contact with him since, and I've said, dude, from the stuff I've put out on my show, you've got so many fans out there that love your material. Are you doing any more? And he said, nope, that's it. I have no plans to make any further music. I'll put out the one album and that's it. But what an incredible legacy he left. And the track you're about to play now is just pure lyrics, and you learn in 6 or 7 minutes what you might otherwise have to get from a 1,000-page book. It just lays it all out there for you, and anyone can understand it, and it's just so impactful.
Great. Well, I couldn't find any visuals to it at the time, so I've actually put some globe denying screenshots behind in the scenes, but the tune's there. CaleSampson.com. I've put in the chat room. We'll see everyone out. Mark, it's been an absolute pleasure. Enjoyed your company. See you again next week, folks, when we've got conversations with Dr. Adil.
No, Mark Steele next week.
And also Mark Steele. Oh, sorry, beg your pardon. Thursday is Dr. Adil and Mark Steele also next week.
Oh, cool.
So see everyone next week. Thanks for tuning in. This is
so
Cale Sampson, The Facts of War. Here we go.
In a world dominated by capitalism, the fact is war's not about nationalism or what television tells you to believe in. It ain't about security, it's not about freedom.
Oh, that's a shame.
There it goes again.
Yeah.
It's about conquering resources, expanding an empire that's corporate, so industrial profits remain hoarded. A few rich elite people are rewarded. These individuals don't report to the government because it's a revolving door where laws and policies are basically forged to benefit the rich while the poor are ignored. And to understand this is important. Out of war, a small group makes a fortune. Regardless of its inhumanity, it's actually wanted by industry because it's the most lucrative thing that can happen. And international bankers always cash in, forcing countries to borrow more and more money just to support their wars. The bottom line is more profit is made the longer that a war can be sustained. They're supposed to be long and go on, and believe it or not, they're not meant to be won. Look at history, you'll see events are staged within the government and someone else is blamed. Public perception is manipulated to support agendas that before we were against. This is all done through the mass media because people believe what TV feeds to us. There's no real enemy in a war on terror. So what that means is it can go on forever.
Men do not easily assume the task of opposing their government's policy, especially in time of war.
I am asking your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people.
What if war and preparation for war is a racket? What if the American people woke up and understood that the official reasons for going to war are almost always based on lies and promoted by war propaganda in order to serve special interests?
At the time that World War II began, Franklin Roosevelt was the U.S. president, and his family were bankers who wanted in the war because for them nothing else could make them profit more. The plan was to provoke the Japanese to fire the first shot and become the enemy. So Roosevelt did everything he could to spark anger, supporting China, Japan's enemy neighbor, and several days before Pearl Harbor was hit, the president was told of oncoming battleships by Australian intelligence, but he ignored this, resulting in the death of 2,400 soldiers. 80% of the public was against going to war just before this event. Then 1 million men volunteered for action. This was no sneak attack, it was allowed to happen. And when the Vietnam War began, the president of the States was Lyndon Johnson. Again, the U.S. knew it could make a profit if they had an excuse to enter the conflict. In 1964, they alleged Vietnamese boats attacked 2 U.S. ships. This apparently occurred in the Gulf of Tonkin. It's the reason why the military was called in. There's one problem, however. Secretary of Defense Robert McNamara spoke out years later and stated this attack never occurred in the first place. It was a mistake, it was a complete lie. Over 3 million people died. And this is not a conspiracy thing they're trying to hide. You can read it for yourself, it's all declassified.
Either you are with us or you are with the terrorists.
Of course, we're after Saddam Hussein. Bin Laden. You know, one of the hardest parts of my job is to connect Iraq to the war on terror.
There is no doubt that Saddam Hussein now has weapons of mass destruction.
We know where they are. They're in the area around Tikrit and Baghdad.
The main reason we went into Iraq at the time was we thought he had weapons of mass destruction. Turns out he didn't. What did Iraq have to do with what? The attack on the World Trade Center. Nothing.
Did you know, in order to gain power, Hitler burned down his own parliament tower. Then he blamed terrorists for the attack, and within weeks passed the Enabling Act. This destroyed the German constitution. When it came to rights, people had to lose them and support his program of war and tyranny, all deemed necessary for homeland security. Sounds like something else. It's interesting how history repeats itself. Makes you wonder if 9/11 may have been planned to jumpstart wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. Terrorism's not the threat that we're led to believe it won't cause our death. It's just propaganda used to make you afraid so the government can go to war and take our rights away. Dick Cheney, the vice president, was also the CEO of Halliburton, and that's the same company that got contracts worth billions of dollars to rebuild Iraq. This is why the Middle East was invaded, so they could steal the oil and dominate it, establish permanent military bases to be used against other oil-bearing nations. In terms of profit for the elite, see death and destruction's a positive thing. And the global monopolies what they seek over the energy resources that we all need. It's no different than the...
I'm talking about the real owners now. The real owners, the big wealthy business interests that control things and make all the important decisions. Forget the politicians. The politicians are put there to give you the idea that you have freedom of choice. You don't. You have no choice. You have owners. They own everything. They own all the important land. They own and control the corporations, and they own all the big media companies, so they control just about all of the news and information you get to hear. They spend billions of dollars every year lobbying to get what they want. Well, we know what they want. They want more for themselves and less for everybody else. But I'll tell you what they don't want. They don't want a population of citizens capable of critical thinking. They don't want well-informed, well-educated people capable of critical thinking. They're not interested in that. That doesn't help them. That's against their interest. That's right.
There we go, folks. That's it. So thank you very much, everyone. Once again, we'll sign out now. Have a great evening. Take care and see you again soon.
Thanks for watching.